Here's the question then. How do we protect ourselves from the big tech surveillance?
So lots of different ways. One of the keys is leveraging open source tools, open source
Right?
systems and tools. So something is in understanding first and foremost how these things operate, right? So the base layer of your laptop or your phone here, the smartphone is really just it's a it's a computer at the end of the day that has some phone
Mhm.
functionality, right? But if I took the SIM card out of this thing, it could still connect to Wi-Fi. I could still actually put an Ethernet cable into this sucker through an adapter, and I could still access the internet. It could still function as a mini computer, right? So you have to
Right?
understand how these things work. So it has dumb hardware that has a layer above that that's called firmware that allows the hardware to talk to itself and talk up to the operating system. The operating system is the brain of your laptop, your desktop, or your phone. So that's key to understand. The operating system is so important because if I control the operating system, then I control the device. I control the applications that are running on the above the operating system, and I can control the hardware below it. So if I control the operating system, I can turn your microphone on and off. I can turn your camera on and off without you even knowing it. I can control the applications that you're using or monitor and see all the stuff that's going on your phone without you even knowing it, right? So the operating system is key. And when you're running a Google Android phone or you're running a iOS, an Apple iPhone, you're giving control, or you're running Microsoft Windows or Mac OS on your MacBook Pro or whatever you've got, right? You're giving control of that device to Microsoft, Google, or Apple. They control your device. You have the privilege of using the thing that they own and giving them all your data. When you strip them out of that operating system and you run something that is open source that you control, it changes the ball game. Now this is a device that I control. I run an open source operating system on my phone and on my laptop. I control my devices. If I turn off a mic, I know it's off. If I turn off a camera, I know it's off. If I don't want to give access for a certain app to a certain thing, I know I can just, turn that off and it's not going to have access because each application in here sits in its own little quarantine box. And if it wants access to something, it's going to notify me. Some people say, well, I'm getting a bunch of notifications now on my phone. That's a that's a feature that's not a flaw, right? You want to know what your device is doing. You want to understand that if I downloaded a new flashlight application and it wants to know my GPS, it wants to know my contacts, it wants to know all these things. It's like, why? Well, it's obvious it wants to know those things because it can monetize those things. It can make money off of me. But people have said, click the terms of service when you download an application. Yes, 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 sure. Yes, I agree, I agree, I agree. They get into it without even reading it. What they don't realize is they've just given free reign access of that application to their device. And they've given definitely given free reign access to Apple and Google and Microsoft if they're running those operating systems. So the first important thing is for people to understand is you have to take back control of your operating system. And Linux, most people have heard of Linux, or at least vaguely are aware of what Linux is. There are so many different versions of Linux that now run super cleanly on your laptops and your desktops. You never need to script or code anything anymore. It used to be that you had to 4 or 5 years ago. You don't need to do any of that. It looks like an iOS operating system, but you have control of it. Or you can make it look like a Windows operating system, but you control it. That's absolutely paramount. Getting these companies out of your operating system life is absolutely key. And then doing an audit, a tech audit of yourself and saying, okay, what are the applications and the tools that I use on a regular basis that I need to have and that I want to have? And going through that checklist and that process, you can start to say, okay, who runs and owns this tool or this application? Do I trust this company? What are they doing with my data? And there are people like me who have spent and dedicated their lives to answering this question for a lot of these applications. So I would definitely, and I know I haven't even talked about it, but if you go to mark37.com, which hopefully people have seen it above my head here, mark37.com, we've got tons of tools and resources that will educate people on who owns these companies, who runs these businesses. Are they aligned with our vision and our values or not? But that's one of the key things to start reclaiming your data, is to get them out of your operating system, and then start saying, okay, well, where are my files? Where's my email? Am I still using Gmail or Yahoo or AOL, or do I have everything in my iCloud account? Well, then you've given free reign access to these companies, to all of your files, all of your data, all of your emails. Um, but digital security is a lot like physical security. And I think that's important for people to understand. I can become spend years to become a black belt, or like a jujitsu combat master, and I could kick anybody's ass that comes at me, right? But if someone comes at me with a gun and shoots me, I'm dead, right? If someone really wants me dead, I can take all these different precautions and security measures, but they still would find a way to kill me. I could be in a bunker underground with, turret gunners outside, and, layers and layers of protection to get at me. But if someone really has the means and the motive to get me, they're going to drop a bomb above my head and blow me up and kill me, right? So I think where people have to really start to learning is, or really wrap their head around, is, what is the baseline, basic education, digital education, like 101 knowledge, so that I'm not walking around basically with wads of cash in my hand at a strip mall, screaming and yelling, I'm loaded. I've got tons of cash in my hand and I don't know how to protect and defend myself, which is effectively what most people are doing digitally, but they have no idea because they don't understand how these things work. They have no idea. So someone will say, well, Sean, can't you just tell me what I can download on my thing and it will make me safe? It's like, no, it's not that simple. It's not like, well, Sean, can't you just give me a gun and I'll be safe? Well, no, if you don't know how to use the gun, you don't know how it works, you're going to end up shooting yourself or other people around you accidentally. And that's where I'm saying constantly, people are blowing their digital heads off and the people around them on a regular basis, and they don't even know it. So we need to just get people with some baseline education, like lock your doors at night, turn some lights on outside your house, put some cameras up. Why do you do that? Because you don't want to be the lowest hanging fruit that people will attack and go after. You want to make people think twice before they start trying to grab and find creative ways to steal your information and steal your data. So by using some basic things like an open source operating system, not using applications that are stealing your information from big tech companies, using a browser that is actually protecting your privacy when you're online, using a VPN, using an email service provider that's also not selling your data and information on a regular basis, all these different things. But and people want answers now. They're like, okay, so if I just do boom, boom, and boom, I'll be good, right? Can you teach me that in like an hour? And I'm like, okay. If you go to your karate class and you say, hey, I want to become a black belt in an hour, what's that person going to do? They're going to laugh you out of the room. Or if you go to a car mechanic and you say, I want to become a master car mechanic in an hour, they're going to be like, get out of here, right? So we have to realize it's a journey. It's a process. Again, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's like growing your own food. You don't just buy a raised bed or buy some seeds and then instantly you're growing your own food and you're a master gardener, right?
Right.
It's a process. It's a journey. You have to surround yourself with people who understand what the heck they're doing in that space. And you have to get yourself educated, spend some time, invest some time. So for me, that line was crossed decades ago. So I've been digging into this. I've been trying to learn, trying to become educated. For a lot of people, they're only now having that line crossed. We're like, okay, I get it now. I'm not okay. And you can't listen to, I think, our conversation, Brian, over the last hour and a half at this point, or however long it's been, and not get it at this point, right? So for all those listening, now you get it. You can't unhear what you've heard. You can't unlearn what you've learned. You have to make a choice. You have to decide, okay, I'm going to do something about this. And maybe you start with a phone and say, okay, I'm going to get a phone that is running an open source operating system, and I'm going to start to learn how to do this stuff on the phone. Most people start there because it's pretty basic, pretty simple and easy. Then they'll move to the laptop. And then if you're a business owner, people say, oh, well, can I convert my whole business to not using Google Apps or not using Microsoft Teams or not using Zoom or not using any of these tools and whatnot that are owned by companies that are literally trying to destroy me? I should probably, starve that beast instead of feeding that beast. And so they'll slowly start making those steps in that process.
What is say an open source phone that you're talking about? What do they run?
So my phone, for example, runs an operating system called Graphene OS. We believe that Graphene OS is the most private, the most secure open source operating system available in the market. It is based on open source Android. So Google takes this open source Android project and they build all their stuff on top of it. So all of their spyware and all of their applications and whatnot are built on open source Android. Graphene OS is also built on open source Android. One of the key differences is that Graphene OS is still open source. So all the privacy and security tools that they've built on top of open source Android is still open source, whereas Google Android is closed source. They don't want people to look at their source code and see all the different ways that they're tracking and monitoring and stealing your data and siphoning it off and giving it to other people. So that's one of the keys. Graphene OS is one of the keys. So all of our what we call ghost phones run off of a core Graphene OS operating system. If you have a Pixel phone and it's what's called OEM unlocked, which allows you to basically take that operating system and strip it off and put on a new one, you can load Graphene OS on your own phone. So all our phones are, going back to what I was talking about in terms of open sourcing things, we have taken something that is open source, we've preloaded it. We preload it with about 15 different applications as well to get people up and running, like mapping tools and a PDF viewer and VPNs and whatnot, so that you can get up and running quickly and not have to do the searching for yourself about what's the best open source tool to accomplish X, Y, and Z. It's already preloaded. But anyone can do it. You can go to our website. You can look at the applications that we recommend. You can load them all yourself. You can load the operating system yourself. You can do all this yourself. But the reality is most people don't have that skill set to do it. So they'll come to a business like ours and they'll say, hey, can we just get one of yours and just send it to us? That's already preloaded, ready to rock. And we do the same thing with laptops. And our laptops run an operating system called Zorin or Mint, which is basically a fork of Linux, so all open source. Super easy to use interface on those machines, looks like Windows, or we can make it look like an iOS laptop for you. You get it in the mail, it's ready to rock. Or you can take your laptop, if you can part with it, and send it to us. We'll load it with an open source operating system and load some applications on there to help get you running. You can even tell us what you want loaded on there and we'll ship it back to you and you'll be off to the races.
And what is a typical phone run about? Can you share that?
I think our 5As are around $430.
That's not terrible.
And then the higher end, newer, super sexy looking phones. I wonder if I have one near me. Like the new phones that have a really cool camera on them are closer to like $750.
Oh, that's not terrible. I mean, what new iPhones come out are 1,000 plus, right? So
right, yeah.
What do you just drop your SIM card into it to change over your number? How's that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it goes back to education. People think that their contacts are tied to their SIM card, or they think that,
right.
Pictures that they have are tied to the SIM card. All that SIM card is in your phone is what ties your phone number and the carrier, the network service provider that you use for your phone, text, and data to that device. So all you do is take the SIM card out of your device you're using now and you put it in the new device and you'll get a notification that says, hey, from your provider was say, hey, we just want you to know that we've noticed that there's a new phone using, your account. Are you okay with this? Which is what you want, because people can steal your phone number and they can get access to all kinds of stuff if you're using two-factor authentication. So you'll get a notification. You say, yes, I'm okay with it. And then you're up and running. But it, again, goes to the layers, right? If I want to go truly ghost off the grid, we teach people on how to do that too, because you can get a phone number and a SIM card that's not tied to you. It's not tied to your name. It's not tied to your account, your email, or anything. So you can go down that path too. So it's layers of security, right? Depends on who you are, what your mission is, what you're doing.
I wonder if a good way to, like, if someone wants to go down that road would be to get a ghost phone and get a new number, whatever, maybe something not tied to you, and just get used to, not carrying your old phone with you until you kind of break the tether on that. So you get used to, hey, I'm out and about, I'm using this other mapping software, I'm using this. All right, I'm getting comfortable with it. And then, hopefully eventually you get down, like you said earlier, right? You were talking about, you don't burn down the system and then start from scratch. You kind of,
100%.
already have it.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you said that, Brian, because 100% of our customers who, when they get these devices, don't instantly take that SIM card out and put it over and just like try to operate fully off this new thing.
Mhm.
But they take time. So they get the new device, they set it up right, they make sure it has all the applications that they want, that they figured out how to use it, and navigate, and do what they need to do before they make that switch. Are huge advocates, huge evangelists, and they are spreading the good news everywhere that they go about how they can make this transition happen. I would say a good 25, 33%, to a third of our customers who instantly try to make that switch without going through that process end up getting super discouraged, calling us saying, this isn't doing that, this isn't doing this, why is this not working, blah, blah, blah. I'm too frustrated. And they, send the stuff back. So a lot of the literature that we send out to customers after they place an order, which is follow the process. Please, for the love of Pete, follow the process. Take the time, learn this thing before you just, go full bore over. Unless you're a mega geek. And what's cool is if you're coming from the Google world, Google Android world, because the two operating systems are based off of the same open source, operating system platform, they
Yep.
operate very similar. If you are coming from the iCloud, iUniverse world, it will take you a little bit more to get used to, but it's no different than like going from, driving a Honda to driving a really nice new Mercedes, right? Where the buttons are for climate control and even the start button for the turn off and turn on, they're in different places. You're just going to have to get used to it. Might take you a week, might take you 2 weeks. It depends on the person.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Well, and it's, going back to the preparedness aspect of stuff. No one gets prepared overnight, right?
Right.
I mean, you hear that over and over. Like, where do I start? People are kind of lost in the process. They don't even know where to begin. Then once they start going down the road, it's like, oh, okay. And then over time, before they know it, it's like, oh, I'm pretty well set. I have a lot of stuff, I have a lot of food, a lot of, alternative methods of everything. So they get some set. So
Yeah. It's a step-by-step process where I say you have to do the audit, right? Audit your digital world, your digital life. I have an article on our website. If you go to the blog section of our website, I've got a bunch of articles, but one of them is 3 steps to digital freedom. And I walk you through, do the audit, not only of your phone, but your laptop. You might have a home security system, the Ring doorbell, your car. I mean, what is your car?
oh
Your,
man,
your
puts
car
out
is just a
everything, right?
mobile tracking device.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. And literally, the manufacturers of these cars are pulling all of this data, pulling all of your data. If you plug your phone into the car and you do like the Android Auto or the Apple Auto function, it's pulling all this data out of your phone into the car, sending it to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer is selling it. People don't even realize that this is happening. It is happening, people. You just have to be aware of it. So I don't connect my phone to a car. I run everything off of the phone itself,
Yeah.
and I don't connect to random Wi-Fi networks.
Right.
But this is a lot of the training and education that I go through, which you can find on the website. It's all there. We've recorded my live trainings, of which I've done dozens at this point across the country over the last year. You can watch the whole video. It's all online. So I encourage people, just get educated, please. Learn some basics, so that you're not being exploited all day, every day, which is you are. If you're using Google, Apple, or Microsoft or Amazon right now, you are being exploited. Stop pretending that you're not.
So I need a 65 GMC pickup truck and a ghost phone is what you're saying.
Amen. Hallelujah. Yes.